All right, this is the first episode of the Collectible Coffee podcast. Special guest right here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, first off, I just want to say, honestly, thank you to this guy right here, David. Class of a human being, so appreciate it. I'm Eli. I'm a striving artist, I guess I would probably describe myself as. I go by RGE, do a lot of reggae stuff. That's where I'm primarily most passionate about, but I love to explore options. I love to stay open-minded, and this is kind of our journey together, and I'm just really happy to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to have you. I mean, this is a long time coming,
Dude, so long. We tried to plan this for so long, and have days, and I was like, dude, because he was gonna come earlier actually.
Yeah, I was gonna come earlier this month and do this, and it's like, it's pretty surreal that we're sitting down finally and doing this.
Finally, but it's here. So
it's here. We're here to talk about it. So, I guess the best way to start is tell me how you got into music. How did you start your journey in music in the first place?
That's a great question. Well, I'm gonna go probably back a lot.
Yeah, go back a lot
to help with this story, just so there's some understanding and context.
Yeah.
So music for me has always been there since I was born. My family grew up in a culture where we just listened to reggae a lot. A lot of the roots stuff, all the way from the classic 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s roots, all the way to what the scene has really grown into now, which is a really cool scene. A lot of people call it Cali reggae. It's just something that's really, really grown out here in the U.S. And I was always exposed to all these root bands growing up. So since I was young, I danced to Buju Banton and Israel Vibration and bands like that. And for me, music wasn't a thing I took on my own individually till I was about 13 or 14. So I went through phases where I was exploring other music. I remember I was about 11, 12, I was starting to dabble in different songs, and about 12, 13, I went through Monster Cat and that catalog.
Yeah.
So if you know, it's kind of throwback for electronic stuff. But I went through that, and then at 14, I went to Cali Roots for the first time, and that was a big reggae festival, and it's in Monterey, California. And so for me, going to that festival really showed me how much I really did love reggae. And I had always heard it, but I never individually took ownership of that same passion or the same love that my mom had, or my uncle, or the people that would play the music in my family, which was a lot of the people. And so I took it as my own and really started exploring bands like Tribal Seeds, Revolution. From there, it just kind of expanded on from that. But a lot of the music influence comes from my mom loving reggae, because she was in Ghana for a time. And she had gotten a cassette tape of Bob Marley a long time ago. And so that was how she fell in love. And my uncle, who grew up in Soledad, he had a just collection of just old school reggae songs. That was what his family played. That was just his culture. And so just having all those people in my dynamic kind of made it easy for me to really embrace reggae. But yeah, I've explored lots of different things, but music for me has been an individual journey since I've been about 13, 14, but I've always been exposed to reggae music.
Yeah, that's a cool story. That's a really cool introduction. It's a cool story. I actually didn't know a lot about that. I didn't know really. I didn't know that you got it from your family. I thought it was more so you kind of found it on your own. But it's cool to hear the background of where you get your sound from.
Yeah, it's rooted in my foundation for sure.
Yeah, because reggae music, I feel nowadays I feel it doesn't get the recognition it deserves, and I feel someone like you're young, you're 24 years old,
Yeah.
And nowadays reggae it doesn't have the same, I guess, appeal culturally as it once did. Bob Marley, everyone knows who Bob Marley is, right?
Yeah.
But I feel people like yourself, are kind of revitalizing it amongst younger generations. And that's really important, because there's a lot of genres of music that have kind of lost their form, or lost their wave, or they lost touch, And I feel nowadays a lot of young people listen to hip hop and rap, or they listen to electronic music, like you mentioned, Monster Cat. People who love to listen to EDM and rap. Those are the two biggest genres amongst our generation,
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting to meet a person who's doing something, who's in a genre that isn't as popular, but still revitalizing it, using his own touch, his own experiences in the music, and also taking from other genres as well. You and I sat down, and I listen to house music, and I showed you a lot of my influences, like Zoo. I showed you a lot of his music.
Yeah, all really great stuff, really creative, amazing production. Like there's really good music out there, and that's why I always say keep an open mind, because you never know what influence you can be inspired with. You know, with music, it's really one of those things where you don't want to just pick something and like have that be the only thing you really go with. Like you got to be willing to branch out and try new things. I think that's going to help you stand out, because like there's obviously fundamentals to every genre, where you have, like for house, it's the 4 to the floor, or the bum 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 bum.
Yeah.
You know, reggae has, you know, like I guess one of the best known beats would be like a 1 drop, right?
Yeah.
And you have like that, the same rhythm, but you can build on that and be creative with it and do unique things with it. And I think it's a genre I picked because it's really easy. I just love it. I already know I enjoy it. It's something I talk about with people even when I'm not making it. I just enjoy the music. It's just something that I enjoy. And yeah, I could be probably influenced by something more popular, like, you know, the hip hops, the pop, the electronic, the stuff that's more mainstream. That's totally fine. And I want everybody to find the music that helps them connect to being a better person and, you know, finding their way in life. But for me, this just resonates with me and my soul the best.
Exactly.
So,
and that's beautiful, because I feel like a lot of artists nowadays are like, okay, what's hot? How can I either replicate that, or how can I be in that industry that's hot right now, that's known, that's really like out there, you know? And you're kind of going your own direction with like, okay, I love this genre of music, you know, it's a beautiful genre, it resonates with me. How can I add my own influence, and how can I also take from other genres of music and use that for my own music, you know? Because I saw you doing that yesterday. I mean, we made a beat together, you know, we made a house beat, but also like, you know, you were open-minded. You asked me like to show me some of my favorite songs that could influence you. Like, you asked me about horns. You asked me about like different variations of beats and this and that, like vocals. And I was like, dude, it's cool, you know, to mix 2 genres or to do something unique like that. So, yeah.
100%, dude. And it's fun, man. Like, you got to enjoy making music, you know, like I think some people get into like the trends or the hot stuff because, you know, it's like, it's where people are, it's where money is. But you know, I'm really not invested in it in the sake of money, you know, or anything like that. Like, I want to enjoy it, and I really want to connect with like-minded people who find that ability to resonate with the music. And, you know, I've seen it do a lot of good. I've seen it do a lot of amazing things.
What influence would you say reggae has on people? It's a very open-ended question.
Yeah, it's a good question. To me, I think reggae exposes truth. I think it also presents people with a healthy way to navigate life. I don't necessarily think it has every answer, because that's a very individual and personal journey. I think you have to walk your own walk, unfortunately. Like, you're gonna have good friends probably along the way, you're gonna have family, you're gonna have people that love and care for you, but ultimately, you know, the person that you need to love the most is yourself, because you go to bed and it's just you. You know, like there's like, you have your own thoughts, you have your own things you have to deal with as your own person. You got to be accountable to yourself. So I think it kind of is a really healthy guide to how to live. It spreads positivity. It spreads messages to not be violent, right? It spreads messages to overcome. It spreads messages of really, you know, love. And in reggae too, there's a lot of promotion of, you know, herb and marijuana, which you hear a lot about, and that's like a natural plant. And so that's also a thing that is carried into the scene. So I think it's promoting things that are positive moving forward for people. I think people need that direction. It seems like a lot of the younger people, the youth, don't necessarily have a very firm, strong direction going places. And I think it does a really good job at that if you really are listening to what's being told in the messages.
I like that perspective a lot. Yeah. So I want to kind of go in that direction a little bit about like the younger generations. I want to talk a little bit about that. Yeah. I feel like, you know, we're kind of living in a time that's a little bit dangerous, because there's just a lot of, you know, music and a lot of influence right now on the internet and social media that's just telling you to think, to think a certain way, you know, or to think that what you're seeing is true. What you're seeing is the truth, you know?
Yes.
And I want to see music that opens people's eyes, that makes people more aware of the world and their surroundings and who they are as a person. And I feel like I haven't seen that enough. You know, I feel like music hasn't, you know, what's currently popping right now on the radio or whatever, it's just not making people aware, you know?
Yeah. I agree. It's hard for me to really like say what, you know, is going to work for someone, right? Or what they're going to be inspired by. But I agree that there's not enough of that message out there publicly in the mainstream. I don't hear it as much as I wish I could. I do hear artists sometimes, using these messages and getting out there and doing good. And I think that's really exciting. I hope we can see that. I really believe the independent music market and the people in that group where they're making music on their own, outsourcing someone to engineer or whatever, or doing it themselves, which is kind of my process. I'm trying to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
You're just trying to navigate kind of that space, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's good to have the independent artists being able to do it their way, because a lot of the billboards, it doesn't seem to want to bring that message, introduce it.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to find those communities, because music is a communal thing.
It is,
at the end of the day.
I just think it's really funny how like a genre that really promotes like positivity and love and things like that, like it's not promoted. You don't see it. We're not seeing it every day. Like when I go online and I look at like what's trending, the music that's trending, I don't see reggae. I'm not seeing that on the top charts. I'm not seeing people like talking about that. And I feel like that has something to do, like maybe the message is not something that like whoever is in control wants the youth to hear or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I hear you with that. I think reggae is one of those genres that, Bob Marley, right, is somebody that everybody knows. He was out there for a time. He got a lot of notoriety and all that stuff. So that was great.
Yeah.
Reggae doesn't necessarily become like a popular thing all the time.
Yeah.
With culture per se. But reggae is always going to stay around because it talks about the world. It talks about problems. It talks about the human condition. It talks about, politics, all these things that forever stay relevant because it's part of the human experience.
Right.
It will never die away, but it may not be in the mainstream light. And I think the focus is not so much to capture the people that are like, on Instagram, you catch it in a reel,
right.
Like that music, you're not going to find it too often.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it a little more, to be honest, which is really exciting. I am hearing some samples of stuff.
Good.
I've heard some Barrington Levy and Sister Nancy. Those are some like really old OG
good,
artists that have been played and made into remixes and stuff. And been out there publicly in large numbers. But, the focus really should be that we have an audience already. And these are very loyal, connected family that even though it's not large mainstream numbers, the people that we do have, those people can make an impact by how they live and how they model. And that to me is really important.
Yeah, and I think there's beauty in having small communities as well. Like in house, right? There's a lot of people that listen to house, but also not a lot of people listen to house at the same time. Like you go to a nightclub or some kind of a show and it's very intimate. You get in for $15. You pay $15-$20, you get in, you get to be right next to your favorite artist. You know? And that's the same with reggae, right? You go to a small show, someone that you've been listening to for a while, like what's his name? Ayatera. Like, you know these guys personally, right? Like, you went to their show, you've met them, right? Have you worked with them? Or?
I've really worked more specifically with Nick Laporcio, who I'm wearing, repping. What's up, bro? If you see this, but I've mainly worked with him, and I've talked and said hi to some of the other guys, but I'm more personal with probably just like one member directly.
But that's what I'm getting at. It's like, there are these small communities of people, and there's beauty in that, of it not being mainstream, because like we get to experience music in a way that I feel like most don't. Going to
that's a really good point.
Going to these clubs, going to these shows, being intimate with the musician, being able to talk to the musician after the show. You can't go to a Drake show and talk to Drake after the show, but you can go to an Ayatera show and probably talk to one of the lead singers or the bass player.
Yeah,
right?
And that's
you
really
could
good
do
point.
that.
That is a good point. I totally
which is really
agree with
interesting.
That. I totally agree, and I think what is really important is that we keep that aspect. The people that we connect with, that make our music, that's huge. It's a huge deal to really like be able to say hi to them. Like, I hope these artists that have a little bit more of a following out there notice how important that really is, man. That's life-changing stuff. Like, I don't know how many clips you've seen of sports players or like kids like freaking out when like LeBron gives them some shoes, or Kyrie Irving or Zach Randolph or somebody like that, where they're just like, oh my gosh, that's like I love that person. Just acknowledging their passion and love for that player or that game will invoke so much love, and it's just a beautiful thing. I really hope that we learn to give back. I hope people see that as wealth, to give and to serve others. That to me is very important.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
So, I agree. It's nice to have the communal because it makes it a little more personal.
It makes
it's
it
like
more
a
personal.
family. It's like an extended family.
Yeah.
You go to the house show and SF, and it's like, that's my family.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't, have them, in terms of like an actual blood member, but we have so many things in common. I could trust this person. It's like my brother, it's my sister.
Exactly.
That's real.
That's really good. That's really cool. Yeah. So I guess like I want to know. Obviously, I know this, but I want you to explain like where you started and where you are now, because I've heard your music from the very like beginning.
Yeah.
Like you played me your music today from like when you began, and you played me music that you made a couple months ago or recently, and it's like day and night. And I just want you to explain to people like how much you actually worked for the last 4 years to go from like literally not knowing how to do the pitch correctly to making something that actually sounds like it was made in a real studio. Like you really like, there is a
That's very
huge
nice of you.
difference in the sound. And so I want you to talk about what you did for the last 4 years to get to where you are now.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think if people don't really know my story too well, I really wanted to get started. I remember, and I'll backtrack a little bit, it just helps. It just helps my brain to give you guys context. But for my 13th birthday, I got my guitar. If you guys see my Instagram, that's the same guitar I have. So that's a 10-plus-year-old guitar that I have, and I've kept this guitar. But when I was 13, I had an opportunity to really learn. The problem is I was not, disciplined in my mind enough to really sit through and go through it, and I didn't have any lessons. So what unfortunately happened is that sat there. But I still had this desire to create or make something, to express this feeling inside. And at this time, I really thought I was alone in it. Like, who loves reggae this much? Who is like this obsessed about this genre? Like, nobody listens to this. Like, what are you doing? Like nobody in high school understands what you're doing. Nobody, and that was okay. And at the time, I felt really lonely in the process. But then I started realizing, like, a big influence. I don't know if you've seen it in my my studio. It's like on the AC, you can see it's a stick figure.
Stick figure, yeah.
He is a massive influence to a lot, not just me, but to a lot of people in the scene. He started making beats on his own. It was just him. He had his drums, he'd be, and then he would build, then bass line, bum, ba da ba da bum, bum, ba da ba da, and you would just build from there. And so he built everything from his own ability to play the instruments. And I thought, I don't have a studio. I'm not a musician. I don't know anything. So I have to start at ground zero, and I have to be okay with it. So I just kind of flipped the script, and I'm like, okay, well, time to learn. So I just absorbed as much as I could. I asked people questions. I started sharing on Instagram, and my first videos were just me like grabbing my phone and sticking it like on my car steering wheel during break.
I remember that.
I would just be there, and it's, I got my messy hair, and I got like my collared shirt, and I'm just like, I love this song, and it's me like with my shaky camera just trying to record this great reggae song.
I remember that.
And
I remember watching those videos. Yeah.
Then you're an OG. Then That's crazy.
I've been around.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. But that's where I was like, I was trying to put myself out there.
Right.
Saying, hey, is this actually reciprocated out there somewhere? Is there a community that gets this? And the Cali Roots thing was a huge thing. I realized there was a community, but I didn't know if there was a community of people trying to make reggae music. I didn't know if there was like producers, engineers, yada yada. So I just posted and posted, and all of it was really bad and ugly. And there's still moments where I'm like, man, I wish I would have done it better. But overall, dude, like I've fallen in love with the process. I don't have any expectations of what's to come. I just love to make it. If you love my music, that's amazing. I love you and I appreciate you. If you don't, that's okay too, man. Like, I'm glad you even came across it. I'm glad you even spent time of your day to go and, decide for yourself what that was for you. I appreciate that. That's honest, So that whole process, I've just been learning. I've been watching videos. I've been asking questions. I've been harassing some people sometimes. You know who you are. But just trying to like get answers and, manage it the best way I can. I'm just a human being. I couldn't play an instrument at all, 4 years ago. Like 2018, I was really trying to figure that out. 2018, like about midway through that year. So. Yeah. And I still have so much to learn from and grow, and like now I'm trying to really up the music theory. Like I just wanted to play the instruments. I wanted to feel like I could do something. Now it's like, let's be intentional. So, and it's a long answer, but that's been my journey. Is just grind, don't expect anything, and be focused in it, because you got to really enjoy the process. You can't let external people validate what you're doing. You got to be able to fall in love with it personally and be like, man, I don't care what my lifestyle is, because I really just enjoy what I'm working for, to have these moments, these hours to make the music. To me, that's it. I have a beautiful life. I'm super blessed.
Wow, that's a really good perspective. Very, very positive perspective. Very healthy. So what would you say to someone that like wants to get into, whether that's reggae, or someone that wants to start producing, or someone that wants to start like vocals, whatever they want to do, they just want to get into music, they have no idea how to do it or what to do? What do you say to that person?
I would say you have to remove your ego from what you think you know. So the less you think you know, the better, because it makes you a better learner.
The less you know, the better.
Yeah.
Got
The
it.
less you know, you better. Exactly.
Tame Impala.
Yeah, Tame
Got
Impala. Shout outs.
Yeah.
Great artist. And understanding that it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
Be really patient, because like I feel like in the grand scheme of things, I'm like, I've talked to you about this idea, the 0.01%.
Yeah.
It's kind of our joke, right? But like the potential to get to 100% is just limitless. Like there's no way to ever be like the best ever. But, you know, just being able to make steps and setting those goals and being patient, like really enjoy music. If you want to get into it as a hobby or for fun, do that. If you want to take it seriously, it can be pretty tough. There's a lot of people trying to do music. There's a lot of people trying to be bedroom producers. You know, more than ever, music is accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
You know, anybody can buy an interface and do some USB work, plug it in, hook up your speakers, and then, you know, just get a DAW, and then you're set. You can start making stuff. You can become world class if you just understand the principles of audio.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's becoming more and more accessible, like you said, to have a home studio, to be able to produce and do vocals. I saw you do it last night, yesterday, today. I saw you do all kinds of stuff, right? And it's like it's becoming easier and easier for artists to become real artists and real producers, but it's becoming harder and harder for them to become recognized, because there's just so many people. Because before, you know, you had to get like studio time, you had to go here, you had to go there, you had to pay fees,
Absolutely.
this and that. And to some extent, you still have to do that today if you're like in the big leagues, right? If you're like working with record
yeah,
companies.
I still recommend it. I think studio recordings are still cream of the crop.
Exactly. If you're still working with record companies, you still got to do that, right? But it's just crazy how accessibility has become so. Accessibility has become huge, that it's become increasingly more difficult for artists to like grow a platform, become famous, and become known, and make money. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Like whether you get a big following or not, that's not really something you can control.
Yeah.
You know, I really firmly believe in the people that don't quit.
Yeah.
It's the persistence of people who continue to learn, and no matter what hardship or difficulties they face, they get up. It's not how many times you fall, but it's the time after you get up that really counts, you know?
Yeah.
If you fall 1,000 times and you get up 1,001 times, you're successful. You know what I mean? And that's why I say love the process, because if you don't, falling 1,000 times sucks, dude.
Yeah.
It's really exhausting. And even if you do love it, you still have doubts. You're a human being, man. So
It's true.
yeah, I think, you know, it's a very saturated market, but you're going to have to be unique and creative. I think it's giving opportunity for artists to be more creative than ever before.
Yeah.
You know, when markets are more open-ended, there's not as many people, you know, people end up doing something that's kind of similar, you know, because there's not as much competition. But if everyone's trying to do a certain thing, like very similar over and over, for you to do something slightly different that's still awesome will stand out amongst the rest.
Yeah.
So being creative in your own right, but staying true to what you believe musically should be, what you create is everything.
Let me ask you this. Have you found your sound yet?
No,
No.
I haven't, because it's an interesting question, because I look at artists that I'm like, oh, they found their sound. Like Stick Figure, I feel like has found his sound. If you guys know, you know. But honestly, I don't think he feels like he has probably figured out his entire sound. I think he continues to evolve his sound album to album.
Yeah.
Every album sounds different. Is that really finding your sound? Or is it, oh, he's got numbers that to back that they like what he's doing, right? What does that actually mean? I think, you know, finding your sound means really just being able to identify what you're making at the moment, you know? A lot of artists that I like have different sounding albums, album to album, you know? You don't want to make a similar sounding sound over and over.
Right.
Because you already made an album like that. And then those artists go and perform it over and over again, they get exhausted.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't really think about that, but it's like you got to create stuff that's unique and interesting. You got to evolve it in a healthy way. I think you don't want to lose your identity, but you want to be able to have healthy change, because things can't be always the same, you
Yeah.
know? And if you fall in love with an album that's like 10 years old, like for me, there's an album by a band called Tribal Seeds, and I really love The Harvest. It's like one of my favorite albums. It's like really cool, very raw. The mixing's very interesting. The production is great. The bass lines are like immaculate. I just love the way it sits in every mix. It's just unbelievable. But that's a 2009 album, you know? And, you know, it's 2022 now. And
Yeah.
they're making newer stuff, better production, all this. But it's still their rooted sound. It's still their foundation.
Yeah.
So I think your sound evolves. It's hard to say I find the sound. I think I identify the sound I currently have, the skills I know, the things I understand, and then my sound evolves over time through knowledge, if you're learning.
Well, I think another way to look at like having found your sound is like, okay, let's say I'm a random person and I come across your music. I will consistently recognize that as you. I will always know that this is you making a song. Even without knowing who made it, I will always know this is Eli that made it, or this is somebody else that made it. Like,
that's a good point.
You know?
Okay. I mean, in simple terms, I guess, I know that was a long answer. I guess no, I haven't really found like something that identifies me. You know, I'm navigating that space.
So it's more identity than it is sound. It's like you're still looking for an identity within reggae music.
I think so. I'm trying to figure out what influences best speak for me. You know, like we were playing Damian Marley a little bit in the car. You know, I really just like the way he flows on a lot of his tracks. You know, it's very rap-esque. But it's still the reggae message and some of the rhythms, you know, like Welcome to Jamrock, he's got like some dub sound, dun, 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 all these different things. It's like, what do I like from all that? What do I want to incorporate? And I think I'm still trying to identify which pieces I want to pull, you know?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. That's a really good question.
Yeah. I think it takes a lot of time. I mean, it's really hard to find an identity, right, within music, because like you can go in so many different directions and make different types of things. Like it's so easy to get sidetracked, right? And I think it takes artists like years to be like, okay, this is who I am. I want to identify by this sound or this number of sounds, right? And I mean, take an artist like Drake, for example. I know it's a big example, but like he recently created a dance album, you know, or supposedly like a house dance album, which is not something he's ever done before. You know, it's like to have someone that's considered a rapper for 10 years to come out with like, you know, a dance album. That's not really his sound, you know?
Yeah, it's not what people associate him with. But that's the people's title. They give him that identity, that sound, right? So I agree with you. It's definitely out of the blue. I think Drake gave himself that foundation of like mainly doing the rap style. So for him to do something so drastic is like, it's almost a rebirth in a way. Yeah. It's almost like a dance album,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, it's funny because it's kind of ironic because having an identity within music is also putting yourself in a box.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to navigate. That's why it's a good question, honestly. It's like,
it's really ironic because you find yourself an identity within the genre that you produce. You now have confined yourself to a box, and now you might be scared even to go experiment elsewhere because you know the people that like you for what you make, they might not want to listen to your other stuff. You know, the new stuff you come up with, which is really interesting because like it's kind of like a paradox. You know, like you're always searching for your identity, but then you're also afraid to find your identity because you're afraid that those people that like your identity won't listen to the other stuff that you're making, the new stuff that you want to produce, you know, because you're going to get bored eventually of something, you know. That's really interesting. I just thought of that right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. It really is an interesting road to navigate, to be honest. So it's always going. Things are always changing. So it's hard for me to say like, because when I hear find your sound, I just think of like that is just it. Now we accept that as like set in stone almost. Which I don't know if that's necessarily true. Yeah. It's hard to imagine things are always the same. So yeah, I think a healthy amount of experimentation with the foundation of a style is probably the best way to do it. You know? But again, I'm someone still trying to navigate it, you know, like I think my opinion will probably mean less in 6 months or something. You know, that's how often things are changing. You know, in my mind sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine like a year from now, you might be making completely different sounding reggae music. You know. Yeah, potentially. It's very possible. Who knows? I definitely have something I feel like connected with the most. You know, like definitely the root stuff is what I feel most connected with. But there's a lot of great bands out there. You know, a lot of bands who have come out, you know, and a lot of them are American, you know, have done these styles and have really created some cool stuff. So we spoke about, you know, music, your influences, you know, your journey through music, but like let's kind of unpack a little bit. Let's talk about like your life, who you are as a person, like maybe some of your values,
what you believe in, you know, your story, your youth. Just tell me about your life, who you are.
Yeah, I guess I'll give a little background. So
Yeah.
we'll go back to the beginnings. So I was born in Chico, California, to my two parents. And from there, it's been honestly an amazing journey. Life has been really cool. We moved to Texas. So my dad got an opportunity actually out there for, I think it was some teaching job or something related to that. I'm not 100% sure, but it was based on a job opportunity. And we were going to fly out. I think it was on 9/11 actually.
On 9/11?
Yeah, we were going
Which
to
year?
fly. 2001.
Holy shit.
We were going to fly on that date.
Wow. That's crazy.
Or maybe it was the fall. It might have been either that day or the fall, but I know all the flights got grounded. Everything was like from what I was told. And we ended up having to wait a while, you know, and then I think we decided on driving, so we just drove to Texas from California, and that's a drive.
Yeah.
And we did that many times too, coming back out here for family and stuff. So for me, it was cool. So we were in Galveston for a time when I was really young, but I really grew up in an area in San Antonio, Texas for a while. So I was there for about 10 years. I lived kind of near downtown for a while, but overall we stayed in a county called Bexar County. So 210 represent, by the way. San Antonio, let's go.
San Antonio.
So I grew up there for a long time, you know, had pretty normal childhood, you know, like I got to play. We lived on a cul-de-sac, like kind of how you imagine like a childhood, like trying to mess around. We had scooters, we had Razor scooters, we scooted around. We made videos with our friend Grant, who used to have like a camera, and we would like angle it at the base, so we'd slide in and do these cool videos. Ironically, now we have the cameras here doing a podcast. It's just a new evolution of time. So it's been really cool to go through all that. You know, a lot of my values and what I believe come from mom. Mom has been the stronghold. You know, my parents divorced when I was, you know, just becoming like a teenager, and that was a really hard time for me. And that was right after we'd gone to Costa Rica. So backtracking a little bit, you know, we grew up in Texas. You know, I had all these friends. I knew everything about the world was Texas for me. It was all Texas, Texas, Texas. And then, you know, out of the blue, my mom was like, you know, we're going to go somewhere new. We're going to go to Costa Rica. And I was like, Costa Rica? What the heck is Costa Rica? Like, I don't understand anything. And, you know, a lot of the things between my parents' dynamic was hidden from me. It wasn't the most healthy, you know, unfortunately. And, you know, I wish it was better, you know, and there's still things that are being worked out to this day. And I hope that it does get resolved. But point being, we moved to Costa Rica, and both my parents got jobs, thankfully, at this school. It was called Lincoln School. There might be another name for it, but that's just how I remember it, is Lincoln School. And it was a big private school. It was like bilingual, so there's English classes, but I learned Spanish, and I struggled really hard with it, actually.
Yeah.
And so from there, you know, we were there for about a year, and it was tough. We moved everything. We sold all of our stuff, you know, all the scooters, everything I loved. It was really hard. Basketball hoop I used to play on all the time. We sold it, everything. It broke my heart. We had everything in 4 or 5 suitcases. We just went to Costa Rica because we were trying to, you know, really build a new opportunity. And at the time, I didn't know it was for my dad to get a new exposure, a new country, and, you know, to heal the relationship. This was like a last resort. I really didn't know at the time. I just assumed we're just giving up everything with like a couple suitcases and moving to this random country. I don't even speak the language. Like, it was so overwhelming to me. And I just finished, you know, 5th grade. So I was going into 6th grade. Just everything was brand new. It was so overwhelming, so scary. But ultimately, you know, it wasn't enough to keep my parents together. So we came back to the Bay. And it was kind of, I don't know, it was a really hard time. I was very lost. I was very angry. You know, I punched holes and stuff. I screamed. I had so much energy. I was just full of all these emotions. I didn't know what to do. And I don't think it helped that I was going into like this teenage mode. And it really ate me up for years. And, you know, I had these moments, and I remember my mom dragging me. She had grabbed me. I don't know if she had my ear. She might have had my ear, but she was definitely dragging me through Home Depot because I had punched the garage door hole. I had gone like, you know, and it just a giant hole, and the guilt, the immediate guilt when you do something wrong like that, it's just terrible. And at the time, I was just so angry and just so confused and lost. And I blamed Mom because I thought she had caused this whole thing. And looking back on it, you know, like I was totally wrong, and Mom was doing absolutely the right thing. And, you know, I always have her back. I just was confused at that time. So
Yeah.
that was a really tough time for me. But I think enough push to not be angry and to find something, you know. And the music really helped me with that. Once I'd gone to Cali Roots and stuff like that, it really started to mold me. I think the influence of, you know, the music that's been over me has been absolutely life-changing. I would never, ever want it any other way, man. It really makes me even emotional. I know I have sunglasses on, but I can feel the teariness, you know? So that, I guess, hopefully that answers kind of what you're hoping I'd answer, unless you have anything specific.
So you said you went to Costa Rica because your parents, they had a falling out in their marriage and they wanted to like rekindle it, and they felt Costa Rica was like the place to do it, or I want to know why like you went to Costa Rica like specifically.
Yeah, well, like I said, I really thought it was just to do something different, like a new adventure. I was confused as the main reason. And I think part of it was to do something new. I think my mom wanted us to go to a different country, and she wanted me exposed to culture, which I'm very thankful for nowadays. But ideally, it was for them to try to heal and go to a new place. Environments are very impactful. So going to a whole new place with like half the stuff or even like more stuff sold and gone, and being in this whole new country with different people and no connections to anything, right? It was supposed to be like a rebirth in that and the healing of their marriage. But I think ultimately, you know, bad habits reigned on, and, you know, it didn't work out. And that's why, you know, it was tough, but I'm really thankful now. You know, hindsight really is 2020, and I'm really thankful for all of that, because man, it taught me so many lessons, and I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah, I just think it's super unique how, you know, to rekindle the marriage, right? I hope that's a good way of saying it. Your parents said, "Fuck it, let's go to Costa Rica," you know, because like that's a very unique perspective to have. Like just saying like, let's just leave our home country that we know so well and go somewhere that we don't know. You know, and that's just, I've never heard that before, you know, especially for
that's my life.
That's really interesting, you know, like you would think that most people go to like what, couples counseling or whatever, or makes
a lot of sense.
They do a lot of other things to like fix their marriage, but I think your parents were like, they were up for a challenge in a way to see, I'm guessing they did it as like a test to see if that their marriage could really hold, to see like, are we able to go to a new place and actually survive and be a team together, you know? That's what I'm guessing, because that's super interesting to me.
It is, and I don't have all the specifics on it, you know? I only have kind of a surface level of that idea, but I was told that, hey, like this was to try to help heal this, you know? So, you know, I think they tried, and I can't knock it, you know? They did everything they could, and the opportunity ultimately led me, like I said, I learned so many lessons. I saw a new culture. I saw a different way of life, and it really changed how I saw the world. You know, leaving the U.S., I think if you haven't traveled, it leaves you without perspective for everything else. And, you know, perspective is extremely healthy for people.
Yeah. And while we're on this topic, we were talking about travel, right? Yeah. And you told me that Costa Rica was a big influence on your life, right? The year that you were there. And while we were on this topic, I wanted to actually bring up something really interesting. You've mentioned to me that you've been to a lot of countries. You've been to a lot of, you know, like Jamaica. You've been to Jamaica. You've been to like Europe. You've been here. You've been there. Jamaica especially, because I mean that's kind of where a lot of reggae sound comes from, right? Yeah. What did Jamaica do? Like when what did your trip to Jamaica do for your sound or your influence on reggae music?
You know, I don't really think it influenced my music as much as you might think it did. I think I saw the beauty of the country itself. I was in awe. I just was like when we got into Kingston, the way it is, so the airport, it's like kind of out in the ocean a little bit, and then the island wraps around. So you do like this drive, and it's like this kind of cove. So you like get a ride into town, because you're not really in town, but you work your way into Kingston, and then you cut through, and then there's a couple of different highways, and you can go to the other side of the island where there's like Montego Bay and stuff like that out there. So for me, what it really did was it gave me appreciation for where this music comes from, the land where really these roots started from, you know, like this really unique culture. And a lot of that, you know, comes from the idea, because Britain used to own Jamaica. So they had a lot of equipment, they had a lot of different things there. And so a lot of the culture of that Jamaican music came from this stuff that was already, you know, had from like the Britain kind kind of culture already. So they had taken, you know, obviously as they gained independence, which is actually my birthday, by the way, August 6th. So it's the same
I guess
day.
you're meant to be.
It seems like a meant to be thing, which is really cool.
You're meant to be in this genre.
Yeah, 100%. And so it's really cool because I just got to be in the moment of it. I got to experience the beauty of the country. I almost, in a sense, focused on like the culture itself outside of reggae, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we heard like reggae in the airport everywhere, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, like the culture's still really strong there.
Yeah.
You know, they really, like if you walk through, you see Bob Marley and then you see Usain Bolt, because those are like the most famous Jamaicans that people know.
Exactly.
And really cool. But yeah, just the beautiful natural landscape of Jamaica is just awe-inspiring. It's one of the most gorgeous places I've ever seen. It's just so dense and green, and you have the famous Blue Mountain coffee. You know,
Right.
the Blue Mountains in Jamaica are gorgeous, and the people are really friendly, and they're fun, and they live. You know, it's not complicated. I think a lot of people in the U.S., you know, and maybe some of these more developed countries get so caught up in the cycle of work and all that stuff. And I saw a lot more people just doing what they do. It wasn't so much like, man, we created a system or a way of living that was, you know, so reliant on 9 to 5, doing the same thing, getting in a car. You know, like a lot of people just, they lived, you know. There's some people who just were on the beach. They probably lived on the beach, you know, it's cool.
Wow.
But there's a lot of freedom for these people, and they were able to express it. But it was just really cool being able to connect myself to that. And it was really cool because we stayed in a town called Duncan's, Jamaica, and it's up toward the other side of the ocean, facing up from the other side of Kingston. So pretty much it's a small little town, and they have these like homes, and we stayed in this home, and we had actually a lady who did like cooking for us, and it was amazing. And it was just so cool to be a part of that community. So just going to Jamaica really like gave me a massive appreciation for what I had loved, and just the natural culture that was there, you know, outside of even reggae. So
Yeah, and you said that you went there before you started making reggae music, right?
no.
You went there during your
In the last couple of years.
couple of years.
Mhm.
Okay.
So it was in that process.
Oh wow. Okay. So interesting. So I guess you could say it had some influence on
Sure.
your music, maybe not directly but indirectly, because you kind of understand the culture of where your sound and music comes from.
Yeah,
You know.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And I think that's super important, you know, being able to go to a place where your sound is originally from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you're producing a certain type of music, going to that place where it originates, you know?
Yeah.
Like I know this is kind of a weird example, but like I was telling you earlier how like house music originates from Detroit.
Yeah.
You know, that's like most people don't know that. That like original house.
Yeah, when you told me that, I was shocked. I was like,
like
what?
original
No way.
house
I had
music
no idea.
comes from Detroit. You know, and I think that's super interesting because people don't associate Detroit with house music.
Not at all.
At all. People associate Europe with house music. People associate
Yeah,
like
it's true. It's
like
very
there's
true.
a huge European culture around house and EDM, but real house music came from Detroit, and I've always wanted to like explore that.
Yeah.
You know, there's an artist. His name is Moody Man, and he's a big. I guess I don't know if he's a house artist per se, but he has a lot of house influence, and he lives in Detroit, I believe, and yeah, but sorry, there's just like a dude in the background. I got distracted, but anyways, so I'm sorry.
You're good.
But yeah, Moody Man. So Moody Man is really interesting because he's a dude from Detroit. If you ever look him up, he's got a famous interview with Red Bull where he's talking about like his influence on like from vinyl, because like Detroit was vinyl house. It was like those were the old days back when nothing was digital. It was all vinyl. You walk into a club and it was all vinyl house. It's like super old school.
That must be a cool
And
thing to be.
I think it's
part.
the
That's
most
so cool.
I think it's the most fascinating thing to think about, you know? Like old school vinyl house from Detroit. Like think about how weird that is. I mean how unique that is. You know, just you would never think that. You know, and I think people like Moody Man who still talk about like vinyl and the influence that Detroit had on house music. I think that's super interesting. Like I love to find out where different genres of music originated from, you know, because every genre of music comes from somewhere. And if you're an artist and you're making a certain type of music, it's really important to actually go and like go to that place where it's from and go learn about where that music came from. You know, if I was an artist, if I was actually producing house music, I want to go there and like actually learn about it.
Yeah,
you know,
no, 1,000%, man.
You know,
I'm glad that you appreciate that. You know,
Yeah.
the history of music is really, really important, and it that is so cool. Just thinking about that environment of like a vinyl house thing going on, people just jamming in there like old school.
Yeah.
That is a cool. That's a cool
Yeah.
thing to think about. Like, man, what a cool like root, you know. And reggae, often they refer to like the classic original stuff to root. They say roots.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a cool thing to adopt across everything. But
Right.
that's why a lot of you'll hear it roots reggae. It's like
Roots
old
reggae.
old school classic reggae.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it didn't start off with that sound. That sound evolved through history, through time. You know, a lot of reggae was influenced by like the oldies of the time, jazzy, you know, all sorts of different stuff. Funk. I mean, I showed some songs that were old that had different things. Like if
Yeah.
you listen to Dennis Brown, there's almost a little funkiness. in
It's
some
all
of the
like, there's a
bass
lot of
line.
echo. There's a lot of like,
Yeah.
right?
There's like different effects.
Experimental.
Yeah, exactly. If you listen to Bob's first single ever, it's
Yeah.
like, it's just such a different style compared to like, you know, maybe a survival album where it's just like really heavy conscious, you know, reggae.
Yeah.
So it evolves. And
Yeah.
that's why when we had brought up the Find Your Sound thing, it's like, it always seems to change over time. So
Yeah.
it develops and evolves. And like house music, you know, I know has evolved a ton.
Yeah.
And
it
now
has.
that whole thing kind of comes from, you know, a lot of music is just based on computers now. But like now you
Yeah.
can produce that. You know, you can create that from scratch and then build from it. And like that's what we were talking about, the accessibility and like
Yeah.
music. I think we're in the most beautiful time of music because we get everything. We get the good, the bad. Because it was like we're trying to find good artists back in the day.
Yeah.
Now it's like anybody can make music and the people decide. You know, that doesn't have to be influenced by a label or
Yeah.
any outside business, which is great.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
I mean, you see people blowing up on TikTok. You see artists like,
Yeah, that's fantastic, dude.
you see artists posting stuff about like, you know, in the studio or they're out in public doing things like, you know, making music and stuff. And you see artists blowing up strictly off of like TikTok. And that's how they build their following. They go viral on there. And next thing you know, like their music gets more streams.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they get attention from like bigger names and people and like maybe even like labels and stuff. People, it's crazy how like all you really need to do nowadays is just kind of go viral on the internet and your career can just take off in music, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a good thing and it's a bad thing, you know? Because like a lot of people go viral for the wrong reasons, right?
Sure.
But a lot of people also go viral because they kind of look at music more as a business. Like how can I like make something really unique, put it on the internet, get a lot of attention from people that don't listen to my music, and then they start listening and now all of a sudden I have this huge audience. You know, so it's like it's a totally different way to look at it now.
Yeah. No,
You know?
you're absolutely right. That is how it is nowadays, especially with social media and that influence. It's so important. So I just hope that people that get that kind of attention make change that is in the best direction, you know,
Yeah.
in the most positive direction overall. That's what I hope. You know, I'm not going to judge someone for using music as a business. I'm not going to judge someone for having different intentions than my own.
Yeah.
I can't expect that of other people. But what I can expect is that we make a difference that's worthwhile and it's positive and it's helping the youth. You know, that's really what I actually identify as, like, if it's really good, if it's helping young people.
Yeah.
If it's really making a difference in young people, that's where it's going to be the strongest, because the young people retain that so much, with so much more passion and energy. When you're an adult, like we talked about this, like you already kind of have a foundation. You're less moldable than when
Yeah.
you're like 10 years old. When you're 10
Yeah.
years old and you get spoken to, and someone that you're inspired by leads by example and does a lot of good, gives back, constantly evolving, teaching, educating, doing more than being a musician, being a quality human being that leads, you know, good people in the world, you know, develops good people in the world. That's huge, man. And when the young people are truly affected in the right direction, you know, positive trajectory, that's everything.
Yeah.
To me, at least. So I hope the viral artists really help and move, you know, these younger people really forward, because that's got to be the focus. And I know we're both pretty young, you know, we're both in our early 20s, but
Yeah.
you know, a lot of it comes down to, you know, we need to keep our focus on these young people, because these are going to be the people that really do amazing things, man.
Yeah.
So we're accountable for that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like around the age of 25 is when your brain is kind of fully molded, and your values and your beliefs kind of stay, you know, and it's kind of hard to change someone's mind after they're 25. I mean, it's possible. Of course you could change someone's mind.
Yeah.
But like 25
It takes more work for sure.
Takes more work.
I'm with you.
25 is around the age where your brain solidifies. Everything you believe in is now like, that's what it is, you know? And so it's really important to lay a foundation for younger people that are like, let's say 17 or 18 years old, so that for the next 7 years, you know, because there's a lot of growth that happens between 18 and 25. You know, we can both speak for that.
Oh,
right?
yeah, it's been the most growth for me.
So I think, you know, anyone that's putting anything out in the world for people to view or listen to, they need to take into consideration that, you know, those 7 years, those 7 or 8 years from like 17 to 25 are extremely valuable, and that's where people mold and create their actual identities and beliefs.
Yeah.
I don't believe that identity actually comes before the age of like 17. Because if I look back at my life, I don't know who the fuck I was before I was 17. When I turned around 18 years old, I kind of started to like say, okay, I think this is how I'm starting to think. I believe in this in the world. I think this way, and I want to go do this. I want to go try out this whole film thing, you know? That's what I was doing back then. And like I obviously I didn't know myself, but I started to begin to know myself at the age of like 18.
Yeah.
But in high school, I had no fucking idea, you know? And so we need to set an example for those kids that are in high school that are about to like graduate, that are starting to now create that identity. Because those years during, whether they're in college or whether they're just, you know, literally just from 18 to 25, a lot of molding, a lot of like change happens in your brain, a lot of maturing happens. And so I want people when they turn, I want people when they turn the age of 25 to have a good psyche, a good like way of viewing the world, a good like positive mentality or view of the world, because there's so many things that negatively impact youth right now, whether that's toxic music, like really just lyrics that cause people to be violent, nicotine, it's a big one, you know, smoking nicotine, that's huge, that really fucks the brain. What else? Just, you know, just I guess if you want to go there, like social media, TikTok, you know, instant gratification, you know, there's just so many influences that negatively affect the human mind at such a young age. Our brains are so malleable from 17 to 25, and I'm only 22. I'm about to turn 23 years old, and my brain even now is somewhat malleable. Not as much as it was 5 years ago, but you know, my brain is still somewhat malleable.
Yeah.
But what I think is really important for music artists, because I'm talking to one right now, what's so important is that musical artists put out music that helps young minds positively grow rather than negatively decline.
Yeah.
You know, because there's so much, I hate to say it, but there's just so much garbage music out there that's rotting kids' brains, you know, when they're 17 or 18, making them think things that aren't true, or making them look at the world in a really weird, negative, you know, nihilistic way. I think it's really good to have artists putting out shit that's really makes young minds think, but also, you know, affects them in a good way, makes them good people. And that's what I think reggae music does, you know? As underrated as it is of a genre, I think it really makes people think, and it makes you look at the world positively. And I know you're doing that in your music, and I know you'll continue to do that. I just wanted to say that musicians need to think about that, well, how they're affecting young minds.
That's beautifully said, man. I totally agree. And that's, I think, like you said, it's really hard. Like, I was writing lyrics, actually. This is going to help me. I wrote a lyric. It's a song I'm kind of working on. I'm trying to figure out the arrangement and everything, but it's called Lack of Conscious. And like, the idea in that, there's a line in there that I wrote that's essentially, it says, humans have never been tested like this before. And that's kind of implying that we've never had access to so much information, all these people posting all this stuff, you know, all the exposure to all this music, all these things getting put out publicly. It's like there's so much saturation of information and entertainment and everything all at once, all the time. And it feels like nothing ever is quiet. It's just, our brains are chaotic. It's like, it's out of control sometimes. It's really hard to process everything. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think musicians, like, they've always had this responsibility, but more than ever, before. We have to be more than a musician. We need to lead it with a certain purpose, that we are accountable for how these other people are living. And it's hard for me to knock someone, like you talk about garbage music or lyrics that promote like substance abuse or violence or being disrespectful to females and all that stuff. Like you see that out there. It's terrible stuff. I don't agree with any of it.
Yeah.
It's really hard, because I think maybe they're searching for it. They're trying to figure it out. And what they know is what they know. You know, some people grow up in that environment where, females do not receive enough respect. There's violence. There's substance abuse, there's a lack of security, there's low income. That stuff is real. So it's hard for me, right, to judge that. And but it feels like in my heart of hearts, everyone kind of has a right and wrong, and they know when they see when something's not right.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, we got to be honest. Like we were talking about that. We have to be accountable and honest with ourselves, man. It's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. So I love what you just said. It's it's so important. It's actually everything.
Yeah,
that
I think so too.
We do that.
It's the reason why, I think it's the reason why we do everything and anything, right? We do.
Yeah.
We always have a responsibility, Especially, I'm putting out this podcast, you're putting out your music. Like, I want to affect young minds in a good way, or older minds, but mostly young minds, because I think younger people are probably going to be watching this.
I hope so.
I
hope so.
Like, I don't want to put something out into the world that is toxic, for the youth, for people growing up. It's because there's already so much toxic shit out there for young minds to consume. Like, I don't want to be just another dude, out here like posting a podcast, for the world to see that's just degrading their minds, And the whole reason why I started this podcast is, one, to interview cool people like yourself, like artists, people that are, creating stuff, but also, two, to like teach young people how to like get into these industries and these fields and do these things, like how to get started, how to begin, how to move through the world in a positive way. That's kind of why I wanted to do this. I mean, like I said, I represent a coffee company. Anyone that's watching this, they see Collectible Coffee.
This guy's dope, by the way. Please, if you don't, follow him, get his coffee. Amazing.
Appreciate you.
I just got to shout that out. I know it's aggressive, but it has to be known.
It's okay. It's
awesome.
okay.
This guy's great.
I thank you. Yeah. I mean,
he didn't pay me.
I gave you my coffee though.
He did. He hooked me up, but I will be buying his stuff down the road. It actually is really great, and this guy's quality as it gets.
Appreciate it, bro. But yeah, I mean, I think this podcast is more so about, like I said, I represent a coffee company. I started a coffee company called Collectible Coffee, but here I am interviewing, artists, and that's kind of like the direction I want to go, and I want to do something more positive than just, it's great to serve coffee. It's great to, have good quality coffee and make people happy in the morning, but I also want to like do something a little bit more impactful, which is why I'm doing this. So yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. I think like I keep saying, like we keep talking about, well, we had a lot of really cool discussions, and it was really fun talking with you, honestly, with you staying here with me. But really, it's about intentionality.
Intentionality.
What you do really affects everything around you, and all of it, like what you eat and what you go buy, and like what you say, and what you believe, and how you act, and how you respond, and how you think, how you process. All of that affects things around you. It's collective. We're all collective in this. Even if you're in a different pursuit, like we're affecting each other by doing what we're doing. Hopefully for the good, for the positive, for the betterment.
Right.
Life to me really essentially is just betterment. Consistent betterment.
Yeah.
That's our goal, is to just strive to be better.
It's a good way to put it.
Perfection is impossible.
Yeah.
But it's not a goal that we ignore to not try to aim for. It's our goal to become better as individuals. And to learn. And that's why, I try to avoid judging people, because I'm trying to get better. There's probably somebody that looks at us and be like, man, these guys have so much they could be doing that. You know what I mean? Like, there's always that next step, the next level that we can improve on. And so being intentional with what we're doing will give us a lot more focus, and hopefully we'll impact people a little bit more.
Yeah.
So
another thing I want to mention is, like, I want to, just for the audience, I guess, me and you, like, we haven't actually seen each other in like 6 years until yesterday.
Crazy.
Yesterday was the first time I saw him in like 6 years. I flew to LA, You know, hung out with you for a day or 2 days. You know, we made music together. We went hiking. We went to Santa Monica. We got some good food. You know, and we decided to sit down and have this conversation. So I mean, a lot of really good things happened in the last 2 days. And I think the greatest thing that I really learned from you is like the most like impactful thing that I learned from you this last couple of days is just like your lack of reaction when things don't go your way. You know, yesterday we were in Santa Monica. You got a $63 parking ticket when we thought we paid for the meter.
We did.
And we paid for the wrong fucking meter. We paid for the wrong meter.
We paid for someone else.
We paid for someone else's meter in Santa Monica, and we got a $63 ticket. The most impactful thing, I haven't seen you in like 6 years. I fly down here, I visit you, you know, and like we're hanging out for 2 days, and like the most impactful thing I learned from you is your way to stay calm when things don't go your way, you know? Like yesterday, you know, we were in Santa Monica. We were out just having a good time. We got some good food. We went to the beach, and we paid for parking, and then we ended up paying for someone else's meter, right? And like
we goofed up, man.
We got a ticket for $63 because we paid for someone else's meter. And like I saw that, I saw the envelope. I was like, no fucking way. We just got a ticket, bro. We paid like what, $10 for a parking spot, and then we got a $63 ticket. And I was kind of mad. I was like, no way, bro. This is just not fair. But you were like, whatever, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. You were just calm. You didn't even react to it. And I was so shocked by that. Like just the way that you just saw that, put it in your hand, put it away, kept it moving. Like, let's go somewhere else. I was like, what? Like, you know, I would have probably raged in that moment. You know, if it was my car and I got the ticket, I probably would have raged. You know, and so what I'm trying to get at is I learned from you that like, you don't always have, it's not about what happens, it's how you react to what happens. And that's actually a quote that I heard recently in a song. It's not about what happens, it's not about what happens, it's how you react to what happens.
It's everything, dude.
It's everything.
It's everything. And I'm not perfect by any means. Like, I think you saw a good moment, right, in me where I reacted. And I try to be consistent. And we're human, so we have to have grace for ourselves. But it's a process. And I've just learned that my peace is priceless. Yeah. My peace of mind. If I let $63 throw me off, make me upset, we don't have a lot of time together. Like you said, it's 2 days. The first day we go out and do something. It's one of the first activities we're doing. I just picked you up from the airport like an hour and a half ago. If I'm gonna let that affect me, then guess what? I'm letting something control my time. And my peace of mind, I can't let that happen. I'll acknowledge it. I'll address it later, you know? Like on the ticket, it told me it's got 21 days to take care of it. So right now, I'm not gonna prioritize that. I'm not gonna emotionally invest in it in such a negative response because it's not gonna serve you or me or, you know, the whole thing we're doing. So yeah, I mean, I used to react, you know, to all this stuff, but peace is better, man. Yeah. Peace is better. It's okay. That's honestly, like, could have been worse. I could have had my car towed. I told you that in the moment. Yeah. Like, I try to always look on the bright side of life. Yeah. And that's what's really interesting is, like, I feel like that influence comes from, you know, the music that you listen to. I mean, like, literally circling back to what we were talking about before. The music you're listening to is influencing your mind. You're becoming a positive person. You're looking at life differently because of what you listen to and the music you produce. It's all related. All of it. Everything is connected. You know? Yeah. It's really interesting. Well, I think I've just been blessed by amazing people in my life who have exposed me to, you know, these different things, and I'm very thankful. And that's why I love to give back, because I think I've been blessed with more than I could ever need for myself. And like I think I have such a blessed, rich, you know, exciting, full life. It's time to share it. Yeah. You know, that is an obligation I believe I have. If I have it good, I must give back. You know. I think I just believe in that. Yeah. It also just brings me fulfillment. I love serving people. You know, I recently started working like at a restaurant in that kind of environment. I love it, dude, because I get to serve people. I get to be helpful to other people. Yeah. You know, like, that is awesome. That is the most fulfilling thing in the world. Like when you succeed and you're doing this whole podcast and the coffee, I get so excited because genuinely that actually is my happiness. To my core, I love it, dude. I love it. I love seeing other people put out music. I love seeing people get out there and get big numbers and have other people and join tracks and collab with big names and get get on tour. That stuff makes me so excited.
Yeah.
And life's too short to hate.
Yeah.
Life's too short to not be stoked and love the process for everyone else, man. We're all trying to navigate it. Let's support each other, dude. Let's all go up to the top together. Let's keep rising up level by level.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it, man. Life is too hard to be shaming other people, being mad at other people, judging other people.
Yeah.
Shame on you if you're doing that, honestly. Because you are now telling the universe, you're telling the world, you're telling God, you're like, I'm not into that. I'm not into having success. I'm not into wanting that for my life.
Yeah.
You gotta wish good on other people. It's like the attraction of success and the attraction of doing well and the attraction of being able to build something powerful and life-changing. I believe stems from those ideas.
Yeah, and it doesn't come alone either. Like, success never comes alone. There's always someone.
It doesn't, and that's the thing you taught me. Not to interrupt you, I know I'm jumping on.
Go ahead.
But that's what you kind of showed me, is I need to get out there a little more.
Yeah.
I need to be social. I need to meet some more people. I need to be less afraid, less in here, more through here.
Yeah.
This has inhibited my ability to express my heart a little bit. And, it's a process for everyone, but I think I got to force it a little bit and feel a little bit of uncertainty and anxiety maybe to push through it. I think it's going to help me become better. I need to challenge that.
Yeah.
I know I need to.
Yeah, I think as a creator, as an artist, and I consider myself somewhat of an artist too. I mean, I'm trying to put stuff out there. You always got to be pushing the boundaries a little bit of what you think you can do. Always have to push the boundaries, in a good, like this to me, I felt like I was pushing the boundaries a little bit. I came, all the way down here, to meet up with you, to interview you, to talk, to have a conversation, to have a good time.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is kind of me thinking outside the box. What can I do for my brand to grow it? What can I do for my brand in something? What can I do that's unique for my brand that'll grow our name and get us out there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know this cool fucking guy named Eli. We've been talking for years. Why don't I use this as an opportunity to meet up with him and interview him and put his story out there, and start something. Spark. I would say I would describe it as lighting a flame. Spark, creating a spark to light a flame. I think that's what this is right now. Me coming down here, flying here and meeting up with you and having a good time, I think is literally me igniting a flame and creating a spark, trying to light a flame.
Yeah.
That's what I think this is. That's what I think this whole thing is. And that's a big reason why I came here.
Yeah, man, I'm really glad you did too, because I can feel that spark, internally. I feel very excited, actually. I feel very motivated to press forward, and I know we have a little bit, we're crossing paths now with this whole podcast, but we're both going our own road, and it's just very exciting to meet someone who's so kind of determined to keep moving and growing and reaching people and being their best self, man. That's great.
Yeah,
like I was saying to you earlier, personal excellence is the greatest form of rebellion against things around us, and I think that's huge. That's huge. So, let's keep growing. Let's keep, pushing our paths. And you're always welcome, by the way, man. You're a super quality dude. And I hope you felt like hospitality was great for what I got to offer.
Yeah.
So
it was fun.
Good.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that's pretty good for the podcast. I think.
Anything else you want to really?
I think we should just summarize, maybe give a little closing. I think
statement.
I'm happy with what we did. I'm happy. I think this was a good amount. This was a good length. It wasn't too long.
Okay.
We spoke our minds a little bit, both of us, and what do you have to say?
Yeah, I think maybe closing statement, possibly. I guess first off, thank you. I always want to show thanks.
Yeah.
Continually. I think that's really important. But yeah, if you have any uncertainty or any doubts or any struggles you're going through, just understand that it's temporary, it will pass. If you have, this dream that you have deep inside of you and you're uncertain that it resonates or someone else has that same dream or anything like that, you don't need permission to go make moves. You don't need permission to strive. You don't need permission to try it out and fail. If you let go of these thoughts and you let go of these influences that are not supporting these things that you love, it's going to help you so much to say I can do it and I will do it. And for me, this whole journey has literally just been all willpower, you know? Like, it's really hard to start and not know anything. Like, a lot of people will probably give you advice, man, do what you're good at, you know? Like, do things that you really feel like you already are developed, which makes a lot of sense. It's much easier. It's much more palatable to do something that you already have some development in. You know what I mean? Like, why not? But if it's not who you really are, it's not what you believe, it's a hard thing to say no to, but you got to trust yourself. You know, build that trust with yourself over time. Continue to press that. You're building a relationship with yourself when you're doing these things that are challenging.
Yeah.
But if you really believe in what you're doing, just keep at it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, don't be afraid to ask for help. I know me and you are both men in the field, and I know men have this like idea that we don't, you know, we got to be tough. We got to push through. We got to, you know, let emotions come at the very, very last resort. You know, let's be there for each other.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. And, you know, it's complicated. It's a tough world sometimes. So that's why I really believe in the things I say and the music I listen to. Like, we need to uplift constantly. A good friend of mine, Jesse, he always says, and I said it to you earlier, but he says, big up yourself.
Big up yourself.
You know, nobody's like hype. You got to hype yourself up. You got to love what you're doing. You got to encourage.
Yeah. You kind of have to be your own mentor, your own like motivator in a way.
Sometimes you do.
Yeah.
And it's a good skill to build because, you know, you're not always going to have somebody. Hopefully you do, and that's a big blessing.
Yeah.
You have someone who misses you, you have somebody who loves you, you got it really, really good.
Yeah.
Anything else you get is more than, you know, than you really need.
Yeah.
You're very blessed.
Beautiful. I think that's good. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really good way to wrap up. I mean, I guess what I have to say is, I guess what I have to say is that, you know, I think there's a lot of value, like I said, in, how do I say this? There's a lot of value in doing what you think, if it doesn't, even if it does, doing stuff that makes sense to you, even though it doesn't make sense to others, you know? Like, it doesn't always make sense to, you know, I guess, fly out to somewhere and you know, do this. Yeah,
I know there's some risk involved for sure. It
doesn't like, this doesn't make sense to probably most people, you know, or my parents or some of my friends. Like, why is this guy going out to LA? Why is he doing this? Like, for what? Do what you feel makes sense. You know, that's really what I want to leave off with. Like, do what makes sense for you, and find ways to connect with others that can find ways to connect with others along the journey. You know, that can assist you, but you can also assist them. Make it a mutually beneficial relationship. You know?
Yeah, it will help so much long term.
Yeah. Just pave your own way.
Your
own way. Don't be afraid to pave your own way. You know, like I really hope that I'm starting something really cool here. You know, I really hope that I'm igniting a flame. You know, I'm not afraid of paving my own way, of, you know, going against the grain and, you know, starting my own brand and, you know, talking to artists. I don't mind. I don't mind. I think it's cool. I think it's super motivating. So, yeah, pave your own fucking way.
Pave your own fucking way.
That's what I have to say.
That's beautiful. Thank you guys so much. Shout out to this man right here, David, for having me on. I hope you enjoyed it, and just, dude, what a freaking legend this guy is.
That was a good podcast. That was a good first episode. All right, thank you for listening. Cool.